Part 21. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 201. When Jiao Anfan heard the topic he was going to talk about, his expression subconsciously became happy. Lu Feng, a man who had never been abroad, talked to him about international finance. Isn't he courting death? Chang Wanteng also breathed a sigh of relief. This is what he said. Jiao Anfan doesn't know much about the domestic market. Although he is positioned as a high-end brand, backed by foreign capital, to create a luxury price, no one has traveled this road. Many people present may also travel abroad frequently, and have also been exposed to some investments and funds. I know a lot about it. I worked as an intern at Goldman Sachs. Jiao Anfan took the microphone and said calmly, I believe everyone knows about the power of Wall Street finance. For finance, stocks, funds, and investments, there are huge markets around the world, not to mention the stock market and venture capital. Internship there is responsible for contacting a large insurance company. I will only say one thing. If you are in the country and you are poor, what should you do if you have the ability but no capital? There is absolutely no way. Here you can only rely on relatives, but it is different there. As long as you have a good reputation and are a good person, then you only need to sign a personal loan, and this loan can go directly to the down payment of a house, and the people there live in villas. Is the bank afraid that you won't repay the money? I'm also afraid. This is where people dare to play. They will sign a risk hedging insurance for you through the insurance company. If you don't pay the money, the insurance company will pay it back for you. The financial system has given a poor man living on the street a new life. I've personally helped these people take out quite a few loans, and they just need to be in good standing, sign, and the next day they'll walk out of their villas in suits, even in a brand new Cadillac. Interview for a decent job. Complete financial system, caring services for the poor, compared to our desperation, that is the new life. When I was an intern, I sometimes became friends with these people, sometimes I went to their house as a guest, and chatted with them. When they were in trouble, they always had tears in their eyes and we hugged and told each other that it was all over. Jiao Anfan said with tears in his eyes. Lu Feng used to think that the subprime mortgage crisis in 2008 was caused by accumulation in the early 2000s. Nowadays, people have an indescribable sense of admiration for the West. The bottom is fine, but these elites have a certain sense of superiority. He talked about the experience of working on Wall Street, and there was light in his eyes, as if this experience was his whole life. Glory! Lu Feng sat there and listened. Basically, he had some superficial knowledge, and it was enough to fool ordinary people. Regarding the contemporary global economic structure, the industrial structure of the Asian region, and the industrialization shift of the successful rise of the four little dragons, the financial focus of Wall Street has shifted. Big topic, not mentioned at all. I've finished speaking, thank you. Jiao Anfan put down the microphone and smiled at Lu Feng. There was a burst of applause at the scene, and all those present were those in charge of specific affairs, who were either in charge of technology or the market, not to mention finance. There was no finance present, and it was natural that they were not aware of it. Zhang Fengxia stood there and shook her head and said, it's over, it's a shame to lose a lot of money. What's wrong with talking about international finance? Su Yorong didn't understand at all, and asked Kuining, what is Wall Street? Dance. That's a waltz, eldest sister. Zhang Fengxia laughed mercilessly. Lu Cheng couldn't help lowering his head to hide his smile. Kuining said, it's a financial street full of big, rich companies. Mr. Zhang, didn't you also come back from studying abroad? I studied business administration. Zhang Fengxia looked at Su Yorong and snorted lightly. I didn't see that you've been abroad before, Su Yorong said, clasping her hands on her chest and didn't speak. Some people in the audience saw that Lu Feng did not speak, and some people coaxed, Lou always doesn't know what Wall Street is. Or does he not understand what is finance? Many people at the scene laughed, and there was a brief restlessness in the crowd. Lu Feng took off the microphone, thought for a while and said, "If Mr. Jiao only knows what you talked about just now, I think you should not say that you understand international finance. It's easy to go out and make people laugh. Although Wall Street is far from China, there are innumerable connections. Since I want to talk, I will briefly talk about what Mr. Jiao just said. A street beggar with a good reputation, sign a letter, and change his life to change his fate." Everyone present was a little surprised. Does he really want to talk? In fact, Lu Feng doesn't say anything, and he can get away with a few jokes. After all, he has never been abroad. This is an objective fact, but now he is serious about teaching Jiao Anfan. "Are you crazy?" Zhang Fengxia muttered. Su Yurong stared at him with eyes like torches. At this moment, in her heart, Lu Feng was truly perfect. A splendid image of omnipotent and omniscient was completely erected. Men, not only must have money, but also knowledge and connotation, otherwise, no matter how much money they have, they are still a bastard. Many people whispered, even Jiao Anfan was a little suspicious. Does he really understand? Lu Feng doesn't know much about finance, but the 1997 Asian financial crisis and the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis have been analyzed and condensed too many times, and Lu Feng has also read some detailed ins and outs and summaries. First of all, the situation that Mr. Jiao said can also be done domestically. Isn't it just giving people loans and sending money? The problem is that sending money will cause inflation. Why are people not afraid? Because the US dollar is the main currency in circulation in the world. That's also inflation. It's okay, people have guns, and you have to buy as much as they print. In essence, it's the act of picking wool. Second, the kind of risk hedging insurance you mentioned is not a perfect solution. It is because some financial personnel released water to stimulate the holiday, and at the same time the insurance industry also made money. Just like flipping a credit card, something will happen one day. Sons. Third, Wall Street is not only Wall Street, but also a continuation of some tentacles. International financial investment has a strong wind direction. These people are real beasts. They are ruthless to others and even more ruthless to themselves. For some overseas investments, you should pay more attention. You can make money, and you can't let people invade. If you talk about finance and only talk about finance, it's just beating the drums to spread the flowers, just like speculating in stock prices. The cornerstone of finance is the real industry. People with harder cornerstones actually don't care about the stock price or something, because they will always go back up. What are the cornerstones of those companies on Wall Street? Is the military strength that dominates the world? Is it hard enough? Too hard. Wall Street's low threshold, high-yield wealth management products, stocks, funds, junk stocks, wealth management packages, and the insurance industry, these people play a variety of strange ways. If you look at the flowers they play now, something will happen sooner or later. Maybe you think they will close down if something goes wrong. They won't go bankrupt, because they know they won't go bankrupt, so they dare to give money to a homeless person. What should they do if they can't digest this huge bad debt internally? Throw it to the world, issue debt, drive global exchange rate fluctuations, or it is to directly find a country to fight, to operate oil or something. This is the way Wall Street plays internally. It creates prosperity in the short term, and many people get rich overnight. What about externally? What do these companies follow? They follow manufacturing. Wherever industrial manufacturing is, they will be there, because countries with industrial manufacturing are gold. The whole is not only in the industry, such as international bulk trade, currency exchange rate, technological property rights, bank control, etc. These things are the main arteries of the world. Of course, there are also companies or markets that they can't eat. What should we do? Don't forget which country they belong to. The rise of the four little dragons has eaten away Japan, and industrial outflow has caused them prosperity. These places are too small. I think the next destination of global finance is us. The scene was very quiet. Lu Feng systematically talked about Wall Street in very simple words. Talking about a country's finance, it was only superficial to look at things like the stock market and funds. From industrial chain, infrastructure construction, national autonomy, military strength, independent intellectual property rights, currency global reserve rate, international banks, etc. What Jiao Anfan said was more like the experience of traveling alone. His words were always full of pride and pride for the trip. He didn't understand the in-depth issues of the tourist area, but Lu Feng was like a paper, it's all dry stuff. Zhang Fengxia's pupils dilated. She couldn't believe it when she looked at Lu Feng with a calm tone on the stage. Didn't he say that he didn't go to school? How did he know so much? Not to mention her, it was Lu Cheng who were shocked by the sight of Lu Feng. Zhang Wanmen stood not far away and looked at Lu Feng. He had a friend who was a high-level executive on Wall Street. He had heard some of what Lu Feng said. He took a deep breath and said a little shocked, so young, so knowledgeable, this son is definitely not something in the pool. Lu Feng watched everyone put down the microphone slowly. All the people at the scene were full of consternation. Only Jiao Anfan's face was a little dissatisfied, but he didn't know how to refute. What Lu Feng said, he couldn't understand. I'm just talking about Wall Street, it's getting late, I have to go back. As for the conversation with Mr. Jiao, there's no need to argue, everyone can express their opinions, but I still have to make a prediction that his corporate life in less than a year, no matter what high-end positioning or low-end market, I am here today, and there is one more thing, that is to tell everyone present, are you ready for a price war? You state-owned enterprises, live so comfy. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he stood up without even looking at Chang Wanteng and Jiao Anfan who were behind him. He said to everyone, shopping malls are like battlefields. We will see you on the battlefield. Remember, my name is Lu Feng, and what I have is money. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 202. At 11 o'clock in the evening, when Lu Feng went downstairs, Mr. Ho came over and said a few polite words. They looked at him strangely. Perhaps the side that Lu Feng showed tonight was beyond their imagination. It is the beginning of September, the north has begun to cool down, and it is completely autumn. However, here, there is still a touch of sultry heat in the air. From time to time, someone walked to the parking lot and greeted Lu Feng. Lu Feng stood by the car smoking a cigarette, raised his head and looked at it for a while before waiting for Kui Ning to come out. Lu Feng stepped forward and put his arms around his neck, held him aside and asked, "What I told me before I came on stage didn't lie to me, did you?" Kui Ning could feel Lu Feng's nervousness, and he could read from those eyes that if he lied to him, he would probably eat himself alive. Shaking his head, he said, "No, absolutely not. I have a distant relative who works as a secretary in Suzhou. The factories over there are not managed by state-owned enterprises, but by the municipal party committee and a village. There are machines and everything." Kui Ning explained everything clearly, and Lu Feng was relieved. With a smile on his face, he patted him on the shoulder and said, "Why didn't you tell me earlier that you have this way, brother? Can I treat you badly? I hid and tucked away to see the outside world. Yes, we have been through hardships together. That, Mr. Lu, the money you promised. Look at you, please don't worry. Don't worry, this is a beautiful job, and it's a lot of points. President Lu has come down. I'll go over and say hello." Lu Feng walked towards Lu Cheng, who had just come downstairs. A few hours ago, Lu Cheng was still worried about the twists and turns of his own destiny. At this moment, he felt relieved and said, "Mr. Lu, when will we start?" "It started from the day you saw me, and your salary is also calculated from that time." "How much is the salary?" "You fill in it yourself. I only have one request for you, help me build a reliable team, as long as it can be dug up. People, just dig hard, wages are not a problem. After the company is established, employees can also be given shares, and dividends will be distributed at the end of the year," Lu Feng said sincerely. "Then I am now a member of GFN Electronic Technology." "Welcome," the chief engineer of GFN Electronic Technology, recruiting personnel, establishing a research institute, and at the same time designing new products that meet the current market. "It's too late today, I have time to chat on the phone another day. I feel that in recent months I'll be very busy." Lu Feng patted him on the shoulder and said, "Go back to rest early. Don't be too tired, Mr. Lu, I'll go back first." Lu Feng waved his hand, turned his head and walked to the parking spot. He breathed a sigh of relief, and finally solved the problem. He walked to the car and was about to get into the car when Su Yorong drove his sports car and parked in front of him. Lowered the car window and said, "Why don't you take my car and go back faster?" "It's all the same, rest early," Lu Feng said and got into the car. Su Yorong didn't say much, just kicked the accelerator and sped away. When she returned to the hotel, she didn't wait for the people behind her. She went back to the room alone, took a shower, and made a phone call from the bed. "Mr. Lu, are you asleep?" Su Yorong said, patting the skincare lotion on his face. "Not yet." "Are things going well?" "The shareholding structure of GMA Food is relatively simple, even a bit extensive. Lu Feng holds 65% of the shares, the absolute major shareholder, and the management partner system jointly holds 30% of the shares, and the remaining 5%. He is a co-founder named Datu. The current situation is that this Big Two is no longer in GMA. Lu Feng intends to restart the financing that was not completed before, and he plans to cash out about 1.5 billion yuan. He signed this prospectus. Gao Jiwei and Du Kefeng are also busy contacting some investment institutions. Our breakthrough point has been found. Lu Feng has a supplementary card for a company account. He is in Shenzhen. All the money spent is directly swiped from the company account, and it is suspected of embezzlement of public funds. Misappropriation of public funds is a crime. Who dares to report the problem? Are you planning to let that big guy go? Su Yuzong said. She didn't want Lu Feng to go to jail, and said, "There's no need to get him in, what we want is control. Those factories. Mr. Su, I have spent a lot of money these days, getting to know people in the management of major factories, and at the same time releasing Lu Feng to directly embezzle everyone's money, and no dividends will be distributed at the end of the year. I have made friends with some important senior management. They hold a large number of shares, as long as they can incite people. Most people kidnap a few people, which is 30% of the equity. As for the big one, you can use it. Isn't he financing? Let's directly take over the equity he sold. In this way, Lu Feng will directly become a minority shareholder. When the time comes, he will be prosecuted for embezzlement of public funds, and he will be in jail. Does he still have room for negotiation? The remaining 30% of the equity is transferred at a low price. We directly withdraw the lawsuit, he will not go to jail, and GMA Foods will fall into our hands." Su Yorong pondered the feasibility of this matter, and only had 4 words left in his mind, perfectly seamless, and said with a smile, "Mr. Liu's work is neat, so let's do it like this. Don't panic, he's busy now. I'm dealing with these people, I guess I'll go back in a while." "I see, Mr. Su rests early." After hanging up the phone, Su Yorong pulled up her loose pajamas, walked to the living room and sat on the sofa to light a cigarette, looking at the dark night outside and muttering confidently, "You can't beat me." When Lu Feng came back, he asked Zhang Fengxia to go back to the house to rest. He took Kui Ning to the coffee shop. Mr. Kui sat there and yawned. It's already 12 o'clock, Mr. Lu, take a rest early. Have a cup of coffee, tell me about that factory, what's the situation? Kui Ning complained in his heart, knowing that he had said it in advance, and he would just organize the information and hand it over to him. He took a sip of coffee and said, Panda's factory, Panda produces technology, Suzhou City pays, and that village produces the technology. Land and money, the three companies set up a Panda branch factory, which was a good business, but the result was a dispute between the three companies, and they just got into trouble. A state-owned enterprise or a private enterprise? This. Who knows, I heard that it is a township enterprise, and it is said that it is a mixed system. Anyway, it is a pot of porridge. It has been 2 years. It can't be sold because of the uneven distribution of benefits. President Lu, do you want to get it? If we do, we have to balance the interests of the three families, and it's not enough if one doesn't agree. Why don't you call that relative of yours now and I'll have a chat with him, Lu Feng said eagerly. Mr. Lu, what time is it? You already have dark circles under your eyes. Is it inappropriate to call so late? Kui Ning yawned. Although Lu Feng was anxious in his heart, he could only nod his head. Go to bed first. After going back to the room to wash up, he wanted to call Zhang Xiaoyan, and then he thought that he must fall asleep. When the lights were turned off, the whole room was pitch black. Only through the window I could see the stars in the distance. Lu Feng leaned on the head of the bed and couldn't fall asleep. He silently pondered what Kui Ning said. It must not be that easy. There are a lot of people with hard relationships, not to mention fat, the bones can't lick the flesh. This factory doesn't know how much money it can get. If starting next year, the 150 million in its own hands can be taken down, it will be a big bargain. If the money is not enough, Lu Feng is thinking about whether to pledge the remaining shares of GMA Foods to the bank. The next morning, in the breakfast room, Lu Feng was eating with a few newspapers in front of him. There was no doubt that the headlines were all about the debate last night, and the headlines were more bluffing than the other. Today you are in the headlines again, and some newspapers are really nonsense. It says that you stand up from the table, glaring at each other, and there is a great light behind you. The whole person's aura is like a rainbow, and no one can match your eyes. Zhang Fengxia putting down the newspaper, he smiled and said, I suspect that this report was written by Jin Yang. It's all for propaganda, haven't you seen Mr. Kui? Lu Feng asked. No, probably still sleeping. Lu Feng read through all the newspapers over breakfast. Some newspapers are indeed exaggerated in order to pursue sales and attract attention, but there are also many regular newspapers, which are generally more sincere. It was not until 10 o'clock in the morning that Kui Ning left the room, and was immediately pulled by Lu Feng to contact his distant relative. Who is it? Secretary Kui's voice was lazily on the other end of the phone. Me, brother Gaba, isn't that Panda factory selling? No, what's the matter? The other end of the phone was clearly in a rush. Let me tell you, I have a big boss, a very rich big boss. You keep that factory for me, you know, Kui Ning said. Really, Secretary Kui felt that he was dizzy. The Panda factory was solved. How much credit he deserved. The happiness came so suddenly, he hurriedly asked, foreign investment? Of Secretary Kui, hello, I'm the chairman of GFN Technology, and I'm very interested in our factory. I want to visit it in a day or two. Is it convenient? Lu Feng said. Oh, hello, what's your last name? The last name is Lu, Kui Ning reminded. Mr. Lu, of course you can come to inspect, but it's not enough for a day or two. I have to report it. Today is Thursday. Come over next Monday. I will receive you and show you about this factory, Secretary Kui said. Okay, then next Monday. Secretary Kui chatted with Kui Ning for a few more words and hung up the phone. Just after hanging up, Secretary Kui, a man in his 40s, was standing there dancing with excitement. This is fate. I have this official luck, and I can't stop it. The problem that no one can solve, I will solve it in my hands. After a long time, Secretary Kui regained his composure, tidied up his suit, looked in the mirror before going out, made sure there was nothing rude, went out, and knocked on the door of Huang Youwei's office. Invite credit. Credit is required. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 203. Come in. The office door was pushed open. Huang Youwei raised his head and found Secretary Kui happy and asked, "What happened today?" "So happy. I contacted a wealthy businessman who is very interested in the Panda branch." Secretary Kui almost laughed out loud as he spoke. Really? Huang Youwei stood up abruptly, overjoyed, pointed at Secretary Kui and said, You can always give me some action. If this is done, it will definitely be a great achievement. Don't dare, it's mainly because of your good leadership. I just did some minor work," Secretary Kui said implicitly. Ha 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 ha, Xiao Kui, this matter involves a lot. The last term didn't solve it, it's incompetence, and it has become a problem in the city. You have been paying more attention to this matter recently. For the resolution team, I will be the team leader and you will be the deputy team leader. Huang Youwei patted Secretary Kui's shoulder with a smile. Secretary Kui was overwhelmed by the whole person. This kind of team is usually held by the deputy mayor. He is a secretary and hurriedly said, "Don't worry, I will definitely not embarrass you. From today, I will be your incarnation." Ha 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 ha, it's fine. After going out of the office, Secretary Kui's brows stretched, and there were more smiles on his face. When he just returned to the office, he saw some documents submitted by the county and district on the table, and he waved his signature and placed it in the pending area. Last night's electronic technology conference was definitely the one with the most attention and the largest number of industry participants since it was held. It made headlines in 27 important media across the country and was broadcast by 6 provincial TV stations. Although Lu Feng and Jiao Anfan did not set up a factory, their names were already known by their peers across the country. Jiao Anfan had too many names: high education, good looks, and extraordinary background. Although many people did not like him, they did not dare to say more, or you will be attacked. They are doctors, are you? Persimmons have to be picked softly. Lu Feng is definitely a soft persimmon. He was born in the mud. In their eyes, he became rich unexpectedly. He has various labels of hillbilly, upstart, and turtle. He is young and has a big tone. He is a little older than him. An old repairman can screw a screw while saying that he also understands electronic technology. In the entire industry, the insults and ridicule against Lu Feng have been in the limelight for a while. The advantage is that before he entered the industry, the people in the industry told him to get out and became a very controversial figure. On the other hand, Jiao Anfan quickly disappeared from the hot topic. From the point of view of hype, Lu Feng is definitely the most popular now. Lu Feng once again transferred 5 million from the account and injected it into the account of Jiafeng Electronic Technology Company. Liuqin officially announced to join Jiafeng Electronic Technology as the chief engineer. Jiafeng Electronic Technology R/U0026D headquarters officially settled in Shenzhen Emerging Technology Industrial Park, and Liuqin was interviewed by reporters. Because Lu Feng was in the limelight these 2 days, the people who interviewed Liuqin for a while broke their heads, which is quite an illusion of a popular star. In an interview, Lyokin said that because it was inconsistent with the original corporate philosophy, he left and did not respond much to some outside rumors. Now that he is the chief engineer of GFeng Technology, he will highlight his personal color in product research and development. There will be multiple products coming out. Especially in the low-end market, GFeng Technology will bring a new industrial pattern. As for the technology licensing that the outside world is worried about, the patent licensing problem has been solved, and the remaining problems will be solved immediately, and there will never be a problem of technology patent infringement. Everything was going on in a hurry, and it seemed to be smooth sailing. In the morning, Gao Jiwei called and said that he wanted to report on his work and financing. Lu Feng was called by Mr. Hong to dinner, but he didn't receive the call. He called again at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. "How is the factory recently?" Lu Feng answered the phone and asked. "Everything is fine, and the market is stable." "President Lu, are you taking another 5 million away?" Gao Jiwei asked. "Yes." "What's wrong? Not enough money in the account?" "The funds are abundant now. The first phase projects of the major factories are basically over, and the money has passed. Now the profit has stabilized, and some middle-level management in the factory are muttering he was not very satisfied with this approach." Back and forth, Lu Feng took almost 10 million. The money in the factory is owned by everyone, and 30% of the 10 million is theirs. You ask Mr. Li to do the accounting separately. After the financing comes, I can fill in the account. Has Wahaha started production? It is expected that the autumn snacks will be officially launched next month. This year, some children's snacks for the Chinese New Year have been developed. The current market share is relatively stable. Mr. Lu, it has been a few months. Why don't you come back? After a while, I'll finish my work here. How's the financing going? Our market is stable, the future growth rate is high, and it is very popular in the capital market. Isn't we valued at 400 million yuan? There are several Xiangjiang investment companies. You chase after me, but you have raised the valuation by 1 billion, there are 3 very suitable now, I guess after the National Day, why don't you wait for your return? Lu Feng thought about it for a while, but he really wasn't sure he could go back. He said, "Let's see when the time comes. Didn't I sign it before? If I can't go back, just follow it." "Mr. Lu, there is one more thing. It won't be a group next year. Where is the location of our headquarters? People in the city have approached me and hope to be located in our city. They have promised a lot of benefits, and the provincial ones have also called me. After calling, I hope to be in the provincial capital, after all, it is a big city." Lu Feng is actually not very interested in the internal affairs of GMA Food, and Du Kefeng and Gao Jiwei have also formed their own teams. Before, he had already handled all the external competition and market tonality for them. To put it bluntly, the current GMA Food can make money as long as it is not a fool who is in charge of the house. You can discuss it with President Du. Ah. Oh, I see. The other end of the phone was slightly disappointed. He could feel that Lu Feng didn't care anymore. The company he created with his own hands was just his money bag at this moment. He desperately wants to cash in and rush into the electronics industry. Gao Jiwei has been paying attention to Lu Feng's every move in the south, especially recently. He has been in the electronics industry like a dragon, making a lot of trouble. Food feed. After hanging up the phone, Gao Jiwei sighed. He thought that Lu Feng took him to the top of the food industry in one fell swoop, but he didn't expect that he would be left just a few steps away. The loneliness in his heart made him a little uncomfortable. Everything has two sides, good and bad. At noon, in Tianyu Hotel, the lobby manager warmly greeted the guests. Now, in Tianyu Hotel, 1/3 of the people sitting in the private rooms are related to GMA Food. GMA Food is definitely a local leader. The presence. Mr. Wang, you are still in the old place. This boss is not common. At first glance, he looks like the big boss in the south, the lobby manager said with a smile. Yes, it's still the private room. Are there any new dishes? Please, please, the menu has just been changed this month, and now there are Cantonese dishes, and Yan Baiji has also changed the tricks. The lobby manager and a few waiters welcomed a group of people into the private room and sat down to look at the menu. The waiter was memorizing and was about to place an order. The lobby manager asked in a low voice, Mr. Wang, your boss hasn't been here for a while. Didn't Mr. Gao eat here with you some time ago? It's not President Gao, it's the boss, the biggest one. I don't know, I can't get in touch with such high-level people, President Wang said casually, raised his head and glanced at a middle-aged man across from him. No one noticed. After ordering the food, the waiter and the lobby manager backed out. President Wang took a sip of tea and said, have you seen it? Even the lobby manager of a hotel knows who GMA Food is. Mr. Wang, everyone, I've told you more than once, it's still the same sentence, give it a try, bicycles become motorcycles, and you can't let you fight alone. This is an equity sniper battle against GMA Foods. We raised no less than 200 million yuan, do you know that Lu Feng is going to sell his equity? The people present look at me, I look at you, and they all nod their heads. It has been spread all over the place. It seemed that I was preparing to raise financing before, but it turned out that I didn't need it, and now I have to raise financing again. The current financing is completely different from the previous financing. Oh? Mr. Lu, you have seen the world, what's the difference? Mr. Wang asked curiously. For the financing at the beginning of this year, the capital chain of GMA Foods is about to break. It is to keep the company alive. Now GMA Foods has a net profit of tens of millions every month. If you redeem it all, the money is estimated to be 100 million yuan. Your company will spend 100 million yuan at the end of the year, which is not a big problem. As for the financing money, Lu Feng will take all of it and put it into the electronics industry. Mr. Lu leaned on his chair and looked at everyone present and said, he's going to run away. Do you know about Lu Feng's misappropriation of funds? The last time I had a drink with a financial supervisor, he said that in the past 2 months, Mr. Lu has embezzled a lot of money, all of which are illegal. Yes, it's a crime, you know. That alone is enough to sentence him to 3 or 5 years. Mr. Lu sat up straight, the expression on his face was very intriguing. Mr. Wang and a group of people looked at each other in dismay. Talking and doing are two different things. Sometimes work is stressful, and it's normal to say a few words, but if you really do it, you have to weigh it. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 204. The atmosphere in the private room was a little dull. The waiter knocked on the door and walked in with the dishes. No one said a word until the food was served. When the dull door closed, Mr. Wang came back to his senses. Seeing these people in such a state, Mr. Lu sighed inwardly, not everyone has the wealth of heroes, this is such a big deal, and it becomes like this. Mr. Wang, if you pay dividends at the end of the year, how much equity will you get? President Lu asked casually. The benefits this year are very good. I should be able to get 100,000 yuan. They also have tens of thousands of yuan. The people present nodded in agreement with this figure. As the middle management of the company, this income really beats all middle management at the same level. Isn't it enough to make such a little profit? We have known each other for so long. You should all know what I do. I just want to make a lot of money. Mr. Lu poured himself a glass of wine and said, after the matter is completed, I can sell some equity to you at a low price. If you have no money to buy it, don't be afraid, take the shares first, wait for the dividends and then repay the money. I promise that your annual dividends will not be less than 1 million. 1 million? The pupils of the people present were enlarged when they heard this figure. Now more than a dozen factories, including Gao Jiwei, Du Kifeng, Mr. Li in charge of finance, and executives in charge of other important factories, markets, and R/U00260, have this dividend. Strength. Is it a big risk? Although we don't earn as much as those people, we also have equity in our hands, and the benefits of the factory are good. We have rice, noodles, and oil during the festivals. We will also distribute mooncakes on August 15th. Mr. Lu looked at the supervisor who was speaking, and felt very unhappy. Talking about things with such a visionary person, sometimes he would get really angry and wanted to strangle him to death. Rice noodle oil? Send mooncakes? Everyone, there is no risk in this matter. Lu Feng will never dare to fire you. The entire management holds 30% of the shares. If more than half of the 10 people vote, we can introduce an equity representative, and then I will acquire 30% of the equity of GMA Food, so that we have an absolute advantage in the board of directors. Then what? What can I do? Then, we went to the Public Security Bureau to report the case, accusing Lu Feng of embezzling public funds, and he was imprisoned, so we could successfully extort him, transfer all his shares at a low price, and kick him out completely. The remaining shares, it's our spoils of war, and we're half divided. After Mr. Lu said they didn't respond, he hurriedly changed his statement. The value of his equity is about 150 million. Even if all the management of GMA Foods are divided equally, one person can share 50,000, not to mention the equity in your hands. Much higher than the management below. When President Wang heard Qian's eyes light up, he thought again, this is the vote of the board of directors. Even if the incident happened, the entire management made a mistake. Can he still fire everyone? Come here, let's toast everyone. It's really a blessing to know Mr. Lu for 3 lifetimes. Mr. Wang raised his glass with a smile on his face and said, I am familiar with the management of other factories, and I can do it. Only then did the atmosphere at the dinner table warm up. Mr. Lu thought to himself, these few people can't make things happen, and he needs to find some more ambitious and aggressive people to be his pawns. In just 2 days, more than 30 people have joined Liukan's R/U00260 department. In addition to some of his former subordinates, most of them are the mainstay of other companies' R/U00260 departments. These people have no hope of promotion, and their wages are low. It is easy to leave. Private enterprise. Secretary Kui is also busy preparing to welcome Lu Feng and the others. This incident has caused a lot of shock in the province. The Panda branch is very complicated. It is a feature of this era. Whoever sees the twists and turns will have a headache. If you can do this beautifully, it will definitely be a great achievement. The villagers of Xiaoli village were the first to get the news. The factory had been abandoned for 2 years. Another villager went to block the entrance of the factory. I heard that someone has come to deal with this matter, and they have to share the money. Everything is ready. Huang Youwei is definitely the most revealing moment these days. He called from the province and encouraged him. His tone of speech was not so rigid. He even called a few words of Lao Huang on the phone, although it sounded like it's the name of a dog, but Huang Youwei is happy. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, after making a pot of tea, Huang Youwei leaned on the chair and looked at the newspapers. 5 of the 10 newspapers were related to Lu Feng. He flipped through them briefly and said with a smile, it's only a big place in Shenzhen. No matter how he messes up, he makes so many troubles. If I put it here, I have a heart attack. When the dust settles, he can call over for a meal. He still owes me a factory. I will let him do it next year. A factory, pay taxes here, my road is wide and long. Huang Youwei was very happy, and slowly calculated his goals. As long as he did a good job, the future would be promising. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng returned to the house after dinner and called Zhang Xiaoyan. "Aren't you busy today?" There was obviously a surprise on the other end of the phone. "No matter how busy you are, you still have to take care of your family." "Have you two eaten?" Lu Feng asked, feeling that he owed them a little. "I've eaten, it's still hot over there, we're already cool here." "Dad is calling?" "Dad, Dad," she called. "Hit me." There were a lot of choked voices on the phone. "She hit your daughter." "Why do you beat the child?" Lu Feng asked hurriedly. Hearing Lu Feng's question, Duo couldn't hold back his wailing any longer, shouting, "She beats her child when it rains, so she's idle when she's idle." Zhang Xiaoyan was very speechless. The child became more and more skinny after going to the kindergarten for a few days, and asked, "Where did you learn these words from?" "Our teacher told me that all of you parents are like this." "I want to talk to Dad." Duo wiped his tears as he spoke. "Then tell me, come over and tell him why I hit you." Zhang Xiaoyan rolled her eyes at her. "I'm not going, you hit me, woo woo woo." Lu Feng listened to the bickering and laughing between the two on the phone, and said to the phone, "Why did your mother hit you? Did you make your mother angry?" "I want to eat hamburgers," Duo exclaimed aggrievedly. "I want to eat KFC." "How can there be KFC in our city? Not to mention the city, there are no provincial capitals, you know," Zhang Xiaoyan scolded. "Go to Shenzhen," Duo said aggrieved. "There is no ticket now. You have to go to school tomorrow. The plane doesn't belong to your family. You can fly if you want to. Can you be more obedient?" Angrily curled his lips, his big furry eyes were dripping with tears, and his two little hands squeezed together and said, "Buy a plane." "What? Buy a plane?" Zhang Xiaoyan was so angry that she said to the phone, "Your daughter asked you to buy her a plane so that she can go to Shenzhen to eat hamburgers." Hearing this request, Lu Feng was speechless. As expected of his daughter, the words were full of BeautifulFemale's generosity. Lu Feng couldn't help laughing and crying, "Too much, Dad doesn't have that much money, Dad works hard to make money, and he has money to buy it for you, okay? You are so busy all day, you say how rich you are, how come you don't even have money to buy a plane?" Duo was a little unhappy. "Dad works hard, you can't make your mother angry, darling. Isn't the kindergarten National Day holiday? Why don't you bring your child for a few days? I guess I won't be able to go back." Lu Feng was a little helpless, he also missed them very much. Su Yorong was a little bored in the room. She didn't know what Lu Feng was doing when he went back to the room early this morning. When he walked to the door and found that the door was not closed, he walked in and walked into the room. Seeing that Lu Feng didn't notice him, he walked slowly going to the bedside. He jumped up and shouted, "Little baby, I'm coming." "What?" Lu Feng was startled by her sudden shock, and his whole body screamed. "What's wrong? Who is it? Who is in your room?" Zhang Xiaoyan on the other end of the phone asked nervously. He, are you frightened?" Su Yorong half pressed Lu Feng and said with a smile, "Who should I call? Are you sick? Who let you into my room?" Lu Feng glared at her and said, "A friend who suddenly startled me, just joking." "Is that Fengxia?" Su Yorong heard that Lu Feng was calling his wife and opened her mouth to speak, but when Lu Feng pointed at her, she had to close her mouth. "It's just a partner, it's okay, I'll let her go out first." Su Yorong got out of bed and saw that Lu Feng was holding the phone in a very gentle voice, talking and laughing, and thinking about his glaring eyes just now, she felt very uncomfortable. She really wanted to see his wife. What kind of fairy was she? So charming. A man stood up and went to the living room. Zhang Xiaoyan didn't ask any more questions, but she kept muttering in her heart. Just now, the harmony of the family disappeared without a trace. What we talked about later was Lu Feng's parents and her parents. Zhang Xiaoyan's sister got married and wanted to let him when Lu Feng attended the officiating wedding. Zhang Xiaoyan went back and told the family that it was not that Lu Feng did not want to come, but that he was on a business trip in the south and could not come back. After chatting until after 9 o'clock before hanging up the phone, Lu Feng sat up from the bed as soon as he put down the phone, went out and looked at Su Yorong, who was half lying on the sofa, and scolded, "Are you sick? Don't you knock on the door? What are you scolding me for? What did I do wrong? What? To make your wife unhappy, do I have to pull it out and shoot me?" Su Yorong said angrily, "Just glared at me, I've already given you enough. It's good. Get out." Lu Feng pointed at the door. "Mr. Lu, don't go too far. One day you will kneel at my feet and beg me. You will do whatever you want. I have prepared a dog leash and a horsewhip for you." Su Yorongqing snorted and walked towards the door. "Boss Su is so busy, there's no need to go to Suzhou tomorrow, right?" Su Yorong walked to the door, twisted her waist, turned around and said, "Where to go is my freedom, you can't control it. I will tell you bluntly, I am very interested in you, it has nothing to do with money, it has nothing to do with business. It doesn't matter if you cooperate, I just want to conquer you." High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 205. Witnessing her leaving, Lu Feng sat on the sofa with a bit of anger on his chest. With such a woman dangling beside him, she was like a hyena on the African savannah, who knows what she is staring at. As for the cooperation with her, she is a smart person. She has long seen that Lu Feng can't take advantage of her. GMA Food is not short of money now, and the two can't get together. Now she needs Lu Feng, not Lu Feng needs her. Zhang Fengxia lived next door and heard the quarrel, so she stood at the door and stared with wide eyes. "What are you looking at?" "It's a ghost," Lu Feng said angrily. "Why are you mad at me? I thought you made people strong. I don't have to see if you are naked. If it really is what I think, I have to keep the scene and call the police," Zhang Fengxia said, standing at the door. She looked perverse, with a strange yin and yang aura. "Do you think this could happen? Who knows, her eyes are green when she sees you. What's the difference between a 30-year-old woman and a wild beast?" Zhang Fengxia glanced at him and asked, "Did you call home?" Lu Feng nodded and sat there in a daze. "Have I really touched you? You're asking this as if I'm a big girl." Lu Feng pondered what Su Yorong said, thought for a moment and said, "What do you think she's planning? Picture you, how handsome you are ranked 5th among the 4 heavenly kings. Close the door and go back to the house to rest." Lu Feng waved his hand to let her go. "Don't. Let's chat for a while. I didn't enter the house, and you screamed and screamed. You just stood at the door, or leaned against the door, and let the outsiders look at it. It's upright. What's your tone?" Lu Feng winked at her, his tone full of sarcasm. "I'm sorry, it's salty to eat at night, and your throat is uncomfortable, so stop pretending, it's not me. You're embarrassed to start, I'm afraid I'll tell your wife. I've been observing you for a while, and when I see her, your eyes will pop." "Don't stare at the serious place," Zhang Fengxia said, gesticulating with her hand on her chest. Lu Feng pulled his face down and stared at her. Zhang Fengxia felt hairy when he saw it. She slowly stood up straight, and whispered, "You can't sleep and make fun of you. Not to be angry, right? Go to bed early and don't miss the plane." Lu Feng walked towards the back room and said, "Close the door for me." Zhang Fengxia put her head in and glanced at it, then slowly closed the door. Lu Feng lay on the bed and couldn't fall asleep, recalling Su Yorong's words over and over again in his mind. "One day you will kneel at my feet and beg me." Her eyes are so determined and determined. Lu Feng couldn't figure it out, but he felt that those words were not angry words. He was so busy every day that he had to guard against such a thing around him. He was also tired and sighed and rolled over to sleep. The next day, at 6 o'clock in the morning, The red carpet was rolled out at the airport, banners were hung up, the newsstand opened, and the latest newspapers were delivered. The local morning newspapers usually made headlines about the most important matters of the local municipality. Today, Kuining, chairman of Hailong Electronics Co., Limited, led a delegation to our city to investigate and negotiate the acquisition of the Panda Electronics branch. This title is very formal, and it is not attractive at all in a bunch of newspapers. The following is a lot of introductions about the Panda branch, a large space to introduce Huang Yowei, and the biggest photo is him. Today's airport is extraordinarily clean. It was cleaned twice yesterday. At the same time, a dedicated channel was set up, and a reporter's booth was set up next to it. When the time comes, I will take a photo when we shake hands cordially. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng set off with a group of 7 people. They didn't buy tickets for Su Yorong, but they couldn't get rid of them. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Secretary Kui had gone back and forth through the whole process several times, and a cordon had been set up next to it, and most people would not let it pass. At the same time, many security guards were deployed, and some passengers who were poking their heads and watching blindly were directly persuaded to leave. The 2 rows of hostesses were beautiful, holding flowers in their hands. When everyone got off the plane, they offered flowers first, and told a group of reporters to choose a good angle for taking pictures. Secretary Kui, Secretary Huang is here. Okay, Secretary Kui turned around and trotted all the way towards the VIP lounge. Huang Yowei was surrounded by a large group of people, such as finance, market administration, industry and commerce, and district leaders. There were a lot of people in Wang and Wang. The most conspicuous beside him was a little girl, standing in front of a group of elderly people. Garish. When will the people come? Huang Yowei asked. Landed at 9:35, now. 9:15, Secretary Kui looked at his watch and said. It's all right, right. I've confirmed it many times, there's no problem, you sit down and rest first. Huang Yowei sat down, looked at the little girl and waved hurriedly, Ting Ting, sit down. Uncle Huang, I won't sit. Jin Ting Ting smiled happily. Don't look at your internship in the municipal government. I haven't seen it a few times. How was the internship? Huang Yowei was very kind, like Ting Ting's uncle. Very good, smart, and capable, especially clever, he deserves to be a student of a famous university. A man in his 40s, wearing a white shirt and glasses, was full of praise. Director's son's exaggeration is a bit too much. I just got an internship, and it was mainly brought by my brothers and sisters, Jin Ting Ting said modestly. I see people very accurately, this looks like a heroine. Huang Yowei laughed and didn't say anything more. Although these people didn't know where Jin Ting Ting came from, they all understood that the faces of the people at the scene were full of smiles, especially the village chief of Xiaoli village. This matter was put aside. 2 years later, I finally saw signs of a solution. On the plane, Zhang Fengxia sat beside Lu Feng, looked at him quietly, and carefully stabbed him with a finger. What? You were angry last night. Lu Feng was amused by her and said with a smile, can we be more mature? Don't act like a child. Sitting across the aisle, Kui Ning was very excited. He never felt that he was so close to more than 2 million yuan, so he said, Mr. Lu, we're almost there. They say the scene is very grand. Gentlemen and ladies, the plane is starting to descend, please adjust your seat backs and close the table. The broadcast began. Lu Feng adjusted the table and chairs and took a deep breath. Listen to Mr. Kui, it's not a good thing that many leaders will personally receive me today. How nice, what a face. You don't understand. The more solemn the representative, the more important it is. If it is to settle in to open a factory, it means that it is a key project. We are going to buy a dilapidated factory. Such a solemnity can only mean that this matter is very difficult. As long as it is solved, these people will, if you can't fall asleep happily, think about it. How tricky this is, Lu Feng said helplessly. Then buy it? Come on, it depends on how good the relationship is here. I heard that there is a small Li village involved in it. This is the most headache. The village committee has invested in shares, and some villagers have also invested in shares. It has not ended for such a long time. It is estimated that year. Some of the documents don't necessarily exist. You haven't solved the problem in the village, and you don't understand the anti-lock. You gave Zhongsan money today and sent Zhongsan away. The next day thousands of Zhongsan rushed. Come over. Isn't this a trickster? It's easy to solve, just call the police, Zhang Fengxia said naively. Seeing her innocent look, Lu Feng took a deep breath and said, what did the police say? Extortion. But the villagers said that people's ancestral tombs are under your factory, and people's great-grandfathers were buried here in the Ming dynasty. Another person said that people used to live in this kind of land before, and another person said that they lost donkeys here before, and someone saw it. The people from the factory took them away and slaughtered them. Lu Feng looked at her and said, what's this called? It's called a commercial dispute. If you don't give him money, what can you do? Zhang Fengxia said with a bit of anger. They can't do anything either, lie at the door of your factory, block the door, and puncture your tires. Lie down if you like, and call the police if you poke a tire. This is considered damage to other people's property. Seeing that she was a little bit mean, Lu Feng said, you always have to go in and out of the gate, let alone step on someone, just touch someone and go to the hospital for an examination. It's too troublesome. If it was easy to solve, it would have been solved earlier. It's not our turn to pick up the leak. If it is easy to solve, it will be easy to solve. Lu Feng's eyes reflected a sharpness. The plane landed at the airport. Lu Feng got off the plane and walked out through the long corridor. Secretary Kui and the others were ready. Welcome, welcome Mr. Kui to lead a delegation to visit. Kui Ning walked in the front, Lu Feng followed closely. Secretary Kui walked up to shake hands first. Kui Ning introduced Lu Feng. Secretary Kui said excitedly, we attach great importance to President Lu's arrival, and our leaders welcome him in person. You, please accept our sincere flowers first. Lu Feng hugged the flower, and the reporter next to him kept taking photos. He walked forward to introduce the leader. Lu Feng raised his head and looked at Huang Youwei. Both of them froze. At that moment, Huang Youwei's mind was a little blank. A second later, Lu Feng was beaming with joy. It was him. This is easy to do. And Huang Youwei's mind is full of, why is he? Jin Tingting was overjoyed to see Lu Feng, just about to say hello, when she realized that the occasion was wrong, stuck out her tongue and smiled at Lu Feng. The atmosphere at the scene is very good, only these three people are out of tune. This is Mr. Lu, the chairman of GFN Electronic Technology, and the founder of GMA Food. This is our secretary Huang. Secretary Kui introduced enthusiastically. Hello, Lu Feng stretched out his hand. Welcome. When I see you, I sincerely welcome you from the bottom of my heart. Huang Youwei's face was stiff, and he stretched out his hand to shake hands. At this moment, he had the heart to kill Secretary Kui. After taking pictures at the scene and introducing a few people, Huang Youwei felt that this could not be the case, so he beckoned to call Secretary Kui over and instructed, tell the reporter, you can't publish it in the newspaper, and don't show it on the local TV station. Pause. Secretary Kui was confused. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 206. Secretary Kui clearly felt that Huang Yuewei's face was not quite right, but he didn't dare to ask more questions. For a while, he felt a little uneasy, not knowing what happened. The reception was supposed to work for about half an hour, and then I stayed at the hotel, prepared 2 tables of meals, held a meeting in the afternoon, learned about the situation, and made a field trip to the Panda branch tomorrow, which was very compact. The reception for half an hour was called off in 10 minutes. There was nothing left for the group photo. Even the notice for lunch at noon was withdrawn. Not to mention Secretary Kui, everyone present felt that something was not right. After leaving the airport, several business reception cars were parked there. Huang Yuewei just got into his car and said to his driver, "Go down and tell the car in front, and ask Mr. Lu to come to my office, my home." Zhang Fengxia put the suitcase on the car and instructed a few employees to get in the car. She got in the car and wondered, why doesn't it feel right? I don't look very enthusiastic. Which one is President Lu? A young man in his 20s ran over. What is wrong with me? I'm Secretary Wang's driver. After I get to the door of the hotel, he asks you to go to his house. Got it? Lu Feng nodded. Zhang Fengxia's eyes widened in disbelief. She patted Lu Feng's shoulder and said, "You two know each other?" "I didn't see it." "Your eyes and hands are sky high. It's easy to deal with it. Let's go home for dinner." Lu Feng raised his hand and rubbed his forehead. "It's better not to know each other." "Have you offended others? How did you two know each other?" "Was it through that Jin Tingting? I saw her there." Lu Feng did not expect that Jin Tingting would be an intern under Huang Yuewei. It was definitely a coincidence. He had foreseen all kinds of situations, all kinds of difficult situations, and this kind of situation was absolutely unexpected. Now the situation is tricky and easy to handle. No offense. When I founded GMA Foods, he was the general manager of the metallurgical steel group. At that time, it was very easy for a state-owned enterprise. He also helped me. It's an old friendship, I'll definitely help you this time. Lu Feng was a little unconvinced. When he left, he had a drink with himself and asked where he was transferred many times, but he didn't say anything after being beaten to death. Later, Lu Feng asked about it, but they didn't tell anyone. The director of the metallurgical steel group said that when someone has been promoted, he is afraid that if you ask him to do things, these people will not be able to help them, and it is not worthwhile to contact them more. At that time, Lu Feng felt a little uncomfortable when he heard this, and even scolded him, but he was a businessman. The past is vivid in my eyes. The car was already parked at the entrance of the hotel, and a black car was parked next to it. Lu Feng returned to his senses and said, "You guys check in first. I told Xiao Yan to come here yesterday, please call her back for me and give her a report." "Safety." "Understood, or I'll go with you, my grandfather is a shame." "Get it, a retired old cotter." Lu Feng waved his hands again and again. "Retired veteran cotters have helped you too much, you idiot." Zhang Fengxia muttered a few words and got out of the car and ignored him. Lu Feng got out of the car and took a deep breath. Looking at the blue sky and white clouds, he was in a good mood. He secretly pondered that he would just go. If he didn't see him for such a long time, how could he still eat himself? Get in the car and go. In an office compound, Huang Yuewei stood at the door of the kitchen and muttered, "I told Xiao Kui that you can buy 2 dishes. Why are you still cooking? The more I look at Xiao Kui, the worse he is. Hao Lai is also a friend. You are a big bastard blocking the door of the kitchen." "It's not over." Huang Yuewei's wife glared at him and said, "Serve the dishes. 5 hot dishes, 3 cold dishes, both meat and vegetarian food, are very rich on the table of the 8 immortals." Huang Yuewei sat there and looked at the dishes at the table and sighed, muttering, "What are you afraid of? This meal will be eaten. I hope I can send it away." Lu Feng walked in under the leadership of the driver, with 2 more bottles of Mao Tai in his hand, as well as some fruits, cakes, etc., opened the door with a smile on his face, and said, "It's really good to see Mr. Huang here. Very happy, my sister-in-law is still so beautiful, the more she lives, the younger she is. I'm a few rounds older than you. Your son-in-law's sister-in-law calls you, come here, what do you bring?" Huang Youwei's wife politely said, "Wash your hands and eat." "Humph, woman, praise your youth, I can't find Bei." Huang Youwei sat there and snorted coldly. After being polite for a long time, he sat down and sat opposite Huang Youwei. Lu Feng looked at him and said, "President Huang has changed, his temperament has changed. Don't flatter me, I'm still the same, are you passing by?" "When are you leaving?" Huang Youwei said with a chopstick in his hand. With these words, not only Lu Feng was stunned, but his wife was also stunned. "You didn't pick it up from the airport, why did you pass by the adult's house? Didn't you say you were doing some project?" Cough cough, Huang Youwei felt a little embarrassed and said, "He was just passing by. The thing I was talking about was Kui." Lu Feng heard that he was driving him away. He might have forgotten how thick his skin was. He said with a smile, "Kui Ning is a middleman. The one who bought the panda branch is me." Huang Youwei shook his head, "Not for sale." Huang Youwei's wife saw that the two of them seemed to be on the bar, and hurriedly said, "I haven't seen you for so long, let's not talk about this, come, pick up a drink." Lu Feng picked it up and drank it. He spent most of the meal talking about the past. He hadn't seen each other for so long, so he was busy doing something. It was after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, full of wine and food, and the food had been removed. After washing out the fruits that Lu Feng bought and placing them on the table, Lu Feng lit a cigarette and said, "Mr. Huang, I didn't offend you, did I? You've all eaten here, what do you think?" "Then why don't you sell me?" Lu Feng said in disbelief, "do you think I can't solve this matter?" "On the contrary, I think you can solve this matter. There are a lot of things involved in the panda branch. You can definitely solve it by your means." "What are your means?" "I will definitely resolve this matter through legal and formal means," Lu Feng assured. "You don't believe what you said. What should you do if you stabbed me? When you fought a price war with Ren Qianbo, what did you do?" Huang Youwei raised his voice as he spoke. "What have I done? It's all formal business means. Who is raising funds from the private sector, and he used the name of President Ma at the beginning. I tell you, you will never be allowed to do this kind of thing in my place. Now I am the first person in charge," Huang Youwei said. Knocking on the table on the door. The teapot and fruit plate on the table tinkled. "Speak well, don't blow your beard and stare. It's none of your business, you go inside. You have to solve this matter. It's also a good thing, and now the domestic electronic technology industry needs to change. I'm just carrying the banner. Don't follow me, I still don't know you. My mouth is full of doctrine, and my stomach is full of business. Do you understand my current situation? I am not the general manager of the metallurgical steel group now, and the panda branch is not made by me. I have done a good job of the product, and I have done a good job, but can I do it well?" Huang Youwei stared at Lu Feng and asked, "Where will I go next year if I can't do it well? Should I go back to a state-owned enterprise?" Lu Feng stared at him and was very angry, but he felt that he understood him. After a long time, he could only sigh, slammed the cigarette butt, and screwed it in the ashtray. Inside. "Lu Feng, this world is full of business opportunities, you are a businessman, I am not a businessman, this meal is friendship, you can eat some fruit and go back to Shenzhen tomorrow, the place is huge, the country has drawn a beach, it's just for you guys." Huang Youwei leaned back on the chair and stopped talking. "Speaking of this, it is already equivalent to opening the skylight to speak brightly. People originally thought that they could get a piece of credit at their fingertips, but now it is too risky to quit. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Feng smoked half a pack of cigarettes and left. Sitting in the car, looking at the street scene outside, he suddenly saw Jin Tingting walking by the side of the road holding something. "Stop the car. Ting-ting. Mr. Lu, where did you come from? I just wanted to say hello to you in the morning. There are too many people." Ting-ting saw Lu Feng's face full of joy. Obviously, being able to meet familiar people here is a blessing, happy thing. I didn't expect you to practice here. It's close to my school, and Uncle Huang is here. I have someone to take care of. How's your business negotiation going? Is it going well? It's okay. What are you doing here? Get in the car and take you there. No need, I'll send some materials, just ahead. Lu Feng nodded again and again, but his mind was spinning fast. It's okay, I'll go first. Is there something? Are you free at night? I'll invite you to dinner. When I meet someone in a foreign country, I have 3 great joys in life. I must invite you to a meal, Lu Feng asked. At night? You can't push it, it's settled as it is. If you have something to do, please take a leave. I'll pick you up when the time comes. Lu Feng waved his hand and let the driver drive away without waiting for her to speak. On the way back, Lu Feng was full of thoughts. When he saw Huang Yue, he was very happy, but this person is easy to change once his butt is in a different position. He didn't want to sell it to Lu Feng, and Lu Feng could only force him to sell it. When there was no choice, it was the best choice. He would never let go of this panda factory. Lu Feng didn't understand the twists and turns in the officialdom, but he knew that if he was Huang Yue, it would be easy to make a choice in the face of things like the panda factory or the person behind Jin Tingting. Lu Feng arrived at the door of the hotel, opened the door and was about to get out of the car, but suddenly stopped and said, "You will be my driver today, don't run around." After getting out of the car, Lu Feng just walked to the door of the hotel when he saw a sports car parked, took a closer look at the license plate. Lu Feng started to head up. This ant is haunted. As soon as he entered the lobby, he saw Su Yurong checking in the class. "Which room are you staying in?" "Our deluxe suite is." Su Yurong raised her head to see Lu Feng, pointed at him and said, "I'm going to live next to him." High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 207. Lu Feng glanced at her and ignored her. He turned his head and walked away. As soon as he went upstairs, Zhang Fengxia came over and asked, "What's the situation? Is this something wrong?" "How?" Lu Feng looked at her and asked. "Those who received us have all left, and we asked in private. They said that all follow-up reports were cancelled, the afternoon meeting was cancelled, and the route for tomorrow was also cancelled." Zhang Fengxia suddenly remembered something and said, "Kui Ning looked everywhere. And you?" As soon as he finished speaking, Kui Ning turned the corner, his eyes lit up when he saw Lu Feng, and he hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Mr. Lu, where have you been?" "My money." "Money? Has the job been done?" Lu Feng asked. "It's done, the factory is there, and you have seen the leaders here." "I'm not wrong." Kui Ning was a little panicked. He had just been scolded by his cousin, and he couldn't get it from Lu Feng. "Money is completely useless. The thing we agreed on is that you bring me to Suzhou to meet these people? Are you too embarrassed to ask for money?" Lu Feng stared at him and asked. Kui Ning's forehead was sweating anxiously, and suddenly he remembered what his cousin told him, they might know each other. "Mr. Lu, do you know that leader? You are such a big boss, we share will and woe together, but we can't cross the river and demolish the bridge. We have to talk about our conscience. Everything was fine, but when people saw you, they became like this. It's not my problem, it's your problem. This money should be settled." I only want the result, and now I can't get the result, and I won't give the money, Lu Feng said and walked forward. Mr. Lu, you can't do this. Kui Ning hugged Lu Feng's arm and pulled him away, shouting, 2.5 million, you promised it yourself. I think you look like 250. It's not a pretty thing to do. Fortunately, I still have a way to save it. Now I'll give you a 50% discount. You continue to communicate with your cousin and agree to this solution, Lu Feng asked. Kui Ning felt that his heart was broken. Is this half gone? But he also knew what was going on the phone. In fact, he was here to stalk him. He could have as many as he could. He nodded and agreed, but it can't be lowered any further. If it's successful, I'll give you the money. If you don't get it, you won't get a cent. Lu Feng reached out and took his hand away and walked towards the room. The elevator door opened. Su Yorong was wearing a strong suit, with a very human figure, carrying a large bag and chewing bubble gum. Glancing at Kui Ning, he stepped on high heels and walked behind Lu Feng. When Lu Feng entered the room, Zhang Fengxia asked, I don't know you very well, so why is it like this? What's the matter? When I came, I didn't say it was easy to handle. The green light was on, and I drove here. You haven't done it yet. Su Yorong threw the bag in his hand on the sofa, and sat on the sofa without saying a word. Blowing out a big bubble. Your room is next door, Lu Feng pointed to the next door. Are you still angry? I was wrong, I'm sorry, I apologize to you. Su Yorong winked at Lu Feng very coquettishly, very seductive. Zhang Fengxia got angry when she saw her, and said, we are talking about business secrets, and also, is it inappropriate for you to dress like this? Bulging forward and backward, there is no way, I have it. You, Zhang Fengxia started rolling up her sleeves, ready to do it, took a step forward and called out, I'm Human, I put up with you for a long time. Lu Feng stopped her and held her in his arms, arguing was okay, but he couldn't do it if he did it. He really thought they were soft persimmons. You let her go, and you still bear with me? I can't kill her, Su Yorong sat up and shouted. There's a fight, let go, Zhang Fengxia struggled, pointing her finger at each other. Lu Feng hugged Zhang Fengxia by the waist and went directly to the next room. She sat on the bed for a long time before calming down. Don't make a fool of yourself. Except for those few employees, it's just the three of us. My heart is broken every day. Zhang Fengxia stroked her long hair with her hand, pulled a hairband from her hand and tied it up, and asked, if they don't give you face, then don't bother. This is a turnaround. How to turn around? Inviting guests, eating, giving gifts, taking advantage of the situation. Su Yorong stayed in the room for a long time. Seeing that Lu Feng hadn't come back, he walked to the door to take a look, then walked back, took out something the size of a finger from his bag, went into the back room, and put on the bedside phone. The microphone cover was opened and stuck to it. She came out and sorted her clothes. Just after leaving the door, Lu Feng came back. She stood there and asked, have you coaxed your auntie? Go back to your room, why do you always mess with her with such a big man? Lu Feng looked at her and said, with so many things in your company, you should be busy with yourself. As for cooperation, after the new year we are discussing, and you should see that, I need money. Su Yorong came over and pouted slightly and leaned against Lu Feng's arms, why are you so serious? I'm not busy. If I'm busy, I'll go back. Things are not going well, right? Do you need my help? This is Suzhou, not Hangzhou. That's also very close. It might have something to do with making a few phone calls. Hearing what she said, Lu Feng didn't plan to let her go in the evening. He thought about it and said, there is a dinner party in the evening, do you want to join? As long as I can help you, I'll go. Su Yorong carried the bag back to his room, closed the door and entered the bedroom, picked up the phone and called President Lu. "Hey, this is my hotel's phone number." "Okay, I see." Lu Feng didn't notice it over there, did he? No, things are not going well on his side. He doesn't have time to take care of GMA Foods. Can it be done before the National Day? When the financing contract is signed, the overall situation is basically settled. The time is too short. There are many people involved here. I will try my best to get it done in mid-October. Then you have to come over and check the situation of the major factories. Isn't he a TV factory? It's a good pretense. When the time comes, I'll put a monitor on the microphone in his room, and I'll let you know as soon as anything happens. After hanging up the phone, Su Yorong hummed softly. She didn't care whether Lu Feng succeeded or not, she just got what she wanted. Lu Feng does not have the money bag of GMA Foods. With the 1.5 billion in cash, he wants to become a first-class electronics company. It is a dream. What Su Yorong wants is very simple. VIP. Look for a man who is 6 years younger. Tisk tisk, not bad, she said and smiled. This was the first time she was with a man younger than herself. Life is like this, you have to be played first, and then you can play with people. The welcome ceremony in the morning was very enthusiastic. Today, people in half the province were staring at it. As a result, there was no news. Some gossip began to spread, and the leaders of other cities were happy, especially those who did not deal with Huang Youwei. He is now doing a propaganda, deceived a lot of praise, and then put his big ears directly on his face, which is really a joke. Huang Youwei would rather bear such a lot of pressure than let Lu Feng buy it. It can be seen from the very beginning that he thought about throwing this hot potato directly out and pitting a company. The reason why he didn't cheat on Lu Feng was because he knew that Lu Feng was not a fuel-efficient lamp. After 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Feng found Kui Ning, called Secretary Kui, chatted for half an hour, and solved some of his doubts. Don't underestimate Secretary Kui, this person's position is equivalent to half of Huang Youwei. A pillow man. Secretary Kui put down the phone, stood up, took a deep breath and knocked on the door of the office. "Come in. Mr. Lu called me just now." "No, let him go. After he said he wanted to invite you to dinner at night, he didn't mean anything, and had no interest whatsoever. He also invited Jin Ting Ting, a fellow villager, for a meal." Huang Youwei raised his head and thought for a while and agreed. Lu Feng found a good hotel nearby and ordered the best private room. At the same time, he prepared a bunch of keys and put them in a gift box. Let Zhang Fengxia and Su Yorong go to the restaurant by themselves, and tell them to go back to their respective houses if they fight. Lu Feng didn't care about them, so he went downstairs and got into the car and went straight to Jin Tingting's workplace. Jin Tingting didn't expect Lu Feng to pick her up in person, and said in surprise, "Why did you pick me up?" "I have nothing to do, hurry up and get in the car." Jin Tingting got into the car and said, "I can have a delicious meal with you. I'm not used to eating in the cafeteria here. Don't dare to say anything else, it's okay to have a meal with me." Along the way, Lu Feng asked her about her life and work, and Jin Tingting chatted all the way, as if she could finally find someone to vomit. In the hotel lobby, Zhang Fengxia was dressed as usual, with a long skirt, her long black hair was falling down to her waist, and she had a light makeup on her face, but it had a slightly European and American look, and her eyeshadow was a little heavy. Su Yorong was different. He was wearing 7-inch high heels, a pair of white wide-leg trousers, a lining on the upper body, and a white ladies' casual suit on the outside. His hair was up, and his necklace and earrings were also carefully selected. Standing there is particularly aura. Lu Feng got out of the car, Su Yorong and Zhang Fengxia came out. Jin Tingting saw Zhang Fengxia as soon as she got out of the car, and said in surprise, "Sister Fengxia, are you here? You are beautiful again." She's beautiful too. Zhang Fengxia came over and looked at her extraordinarily affectionate. Lu Feng stood beside the car, saw Huang Yuewei's car parked not far away, stared at him and got out of the car. Lu Feng took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit one, thinking to himself, maybe in Huang Yuewei's eyes, he is a young man after all. But a meal at noon today is enough to see his shortcomings. Since he seeks stability, he will give him a more stable one, take a bag from the car, and kick the gift box in his pocket. This factory, he got it. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 208. Secretary Kui walked over behind Huang Yuewei, raised his hand to greet Kui Ning, and Kui Ning hurriedly stepped forward to say good things to Huang Yuewei and explain what happened before. Can you tell me this? Huang Yuewei put his hands behind his back, walked over to look at Jin Ting, and said with a smile, Ting is off work. I asked for leave, and Mr. Lu finally came here and wanted to have a meal together. So much affection. Huang Yuewei looked at Lu Feng. Mr. Huang may not be very clear. I went to Hangzhou to deal with disputes a few months ago. I happened to live next to Ting's school and I happened to meet her. I didn't have much to do during that time, and I became familiar with it after visiting. Lu Feng said. Oh? You're just right, it's really just right, what a coincidence, Huang Yuewei said with a half smile but not a smile. Maybe this is fate, let's not stand here, let's go in. Who are these two? Huang Yuewei looked at Lu Feng with a slightly different look. He had seen Zhang Xiaoyan and said, Mr. Lu, won't you explain? He seemed to have caught Lu Feng's pigtails, and Lu Feng was amused by his appearance, and introduced, this is Zhang Fengxia, my secretary, a serious returnee who came back from studying abroad, not for money, just learn from my experience. You haven't paid me salary for several months. Zhang Fengxia rolled her eyes and said. Who is this? Hello Secretary Huang, my name is Su Yorong, the General Manager of Shenxi Aviation and Trade, the Chairman of Tianyu Service Trade, and the Vice Chairman of the Global HNA Association. Su Yorong reported himself to his family, and a lot of names were Lu Feng in front of others. Are somewhat not enough to see. International trade, export. Huang Yuewei was very surprised, stretched out his hand and shook it, and asked, do you want to buy bulk goods? It's mostly cloth, dyes, silk or something like that. Obviously, Su Yorong's current industry is more popular than Lu Feng. Everyone advocates going out. If the goods can be made, it is a problem to sell them. Therefore, all coastal counties and cities are very impressed with Su Yorong's well-connected enterprises. Interest. Everyone went into the hotel politely. Huang Yuewei was naturally the top seat, Lu Feng was on the left, and Jin Ting was on the right. Su Yorong was obviously very concerned about the position and sat directly next to Lu Feng. Zhang Fengxia didn't want to sit next to her and sat beside Jin Ting. And the two brothers, Secretary Kui and Kui Ning, sit together. This store is booming. However, their food was served quickly and the quantity was very large, probably because Huang Yuewei was recognized. Mr. Lu, I have to say that your vision is really good, and the future prospects of the electronics industry are very good. I have been following you all the time, and I will read all your news. Huang Yuewei picked up the glass and said, your idea is right. Yes, the premise is that you have to get money and become bigger, but I am also assured of you, you are such a smart person, you can do things well. Praise Mr. Huang, touch one. Lu Feng touched the glass and drank it. Huang Yuewei drank half of it, put it down, glanced at the people present, and said, today, none of the people here are mortals. Before he finished speaking, Secretary Kui was so frightened that Secretary Kui hurriedly stood up and pulled Kui Ning up. You sit, I didn't say anything about you. Huang Yuewei looked at Lu Feng and said, I understand your intentions, you are a dragon, you have to ride the clouds, we are small here, we can't stand your toss, if things go well, we can come next year. Find me, free land, free loans, and tax-free. Jin Tingting was stunned listening to it, and looked at Lu Feng with some doubts. Didn't he say that things went well? Uncle Wang's words seemed to be driving people away. Mr. Huang, I shouldn't say anything more when I'm sitting here, it's not my game, but I understand what you mean this meal, you don't want to take any risks, and I hope he succeeds. Come here, building a factory will drive jobs and taxation. Su Yorong looked at him and said, isn't it, a bit? Huang Yowei couldn't hang his face after being punctured. He coughed twice and was about to speak. Lu Feng spoke first and scolded, what nonsense are you talking about? Do you have the right to speak? Su Yorong stared angrily, watching Lu Feng prepare to argue, took a deep breath and endured it. Mr. Huang, she's a womanizer and doesn't understand anything, so don't take it for granted. Lu Feng poured himself a glass of white wine, raised the glass and said, I apologize to you. When you're done, drink it up. All right, I know you're quite busy there. When are you going to book the tickets? Huang Yowei asked directly. Lu Feng waved his hand, ignored Huang Yowei, turned his head to look at Jin Tingting, and said, Tingting, what happened last time is really thanks to you, otherwise I would have been bullied when I was out of town, especially it's my uncle who speaks righteously, and also holds a special meeting to discuss and express the relevant spirit of the meeting. I really want to find a chance to thank you. Huang Yowei was a little stunned when he heard these words. Is it such a big commotion? There is also a special meeting, just for him? Don't, it's too precious, but it won't work. Jin Tingting waved her hands nervously. Lu Feng stood up and said, I'll give you a toast. Jin Tingting breathed a sigh of relief and said, don't drink too much, I didn't drink too much tonight. Lu Feng finished his drink, and Zhang Fengxia hurriedly persuaded him not to drink too much. He had already eaten a bottle of white wine tonight and looked a little drunk. It's okay, it's lively. If you don't drink it now, when will you drink it? Su Yorong said lightly. She was all too familiar with this kind of occasion, not to mention vomiting. Even if you go to the hospital, you have to drink it. Lu Feng put down his glass and said, I've also drank this wine. You're going to work soon, and you don't have a place to stay. It happened that I bought a house some time ago, and I accidentally bought an extra set. I was thinking about it. Let's go back, and it's not interesting to think about 180,000, so I stayed. Hearing Lu Feng's words, Kui Ning was a little dumbfounded. How rich is this? How can he buy more villas for 1.8 million? Jin Tingting had realized something, and hurriedly waved her hand and said, it's too precious, you can keep it. Of course, if you want to show it off, keep talking. If you are idle, you are idle. I will give you the key. You can live there if you want. I will live next door. Lu Feng took out an exquisite gift box from his pocket and put it in front of Jin Tingting, saying, don't refuse, don't think too much, it's just for you. If you refuse, you'll slap me in the face. This is not suitable. Jin Tingting wondered. Mr. Huang is here, or do you want to call Uncle Jin? Lu Feng stared at her and said, let's make a phone call. Waiter, get the phone. Let's not disturb jinxing. Before Huang Yowei finished speaking, the waiter came in with a card-mounted desktop phone in his hand. Lu Feng briefly introduced the house and everything. Facing the sea, spring is blooming, which young girl does not have such a dream? Jin Tingting really wants it, and most importantly, Lu Feng said that this house is for himself. She still wanted to make a phone call at home to ask, and she felt relatively safe. When the call was connected, the restless private room instantly quieted down. Dad, you haven't slept yet? Jin Tingting asked in surprise. Not yet. Why do you remember that you called me at this time? Isn't the internship going well? There was a thick man's voice on the other end of the phone. Huang Yowei opened his mouth to speak, but in the end he didn't say anything. Very good, I have something I want to ask you, that is, Lu Feng bought an extra house and said that I can live there. Which Lu Feng? Uncle Jin, it's me, Lu Feng from GMA Food Stuff. I had a relationship with Wahaha a few months ago. Thanks to you, I accidentally bought an extra set when I bought it in Shenzhen. I thought that Ting Ting was not here. I just wanted her to live there, but I didn't expect you to be disturbed, Lu Feng said with a smile. There was silence on the other end of the phone. I had never seen such a character before, and what they meant was very clear in their hearts. After about 10 seconds, the voice rang again on the phone. Ting Ting, haven't you always wanted to have a separate space? Since Mr. Lu is idle, you can live there. Jin Ting Ting chatted a few more times, and Huang Yowei finally said hello a few times and hung up the phone. Jin Ting Ting looked at the exquisite box and said, "Thank you, Mr. Lu." Su Yorong smiled when she saw the situation, and she said that Lu Feng is such a good person to deal with, how could he just leave, so he was waiting here to put eye drops on Mr. Huang. Secretary Kui's face turned green when he sat there. Lu Feng played with his hands and didn't give Huang Yowei any face at all. He just wanted to force Huang Yowei to sell the factory to him. Mr. Huang, I'm a businessman. To tell you the truth, I have offended the entire electronics industry in Shenzhen. This Panda branch is my last hope. I hope you can raise your hand. This bottle of wine is left over. The second half of the bottle, I was suffocated, it is sincere, Lu Feng said solemnly. You sell others, don't sell me, just don't give me face. The big deal is that I quit, I go back to get GMA food, I'm still a local snake. Secretary Kui couldn't stand it, he slammed the table and shouted, Lu Feng, don't be too arrogant. I'm so arrogant. Lu Feng picked up the wine bottle and took a big gulp. He turned the bottle over and put it on the table without a drop. The atmosphere at the scene was a little stiff. Zhang Fengxia looked at him worriedly, Su Yorong was full of admiration, and Jin Ting Ting was a little stunned, as if she was frightened by this sudden shock, not knowing what happened. Huang Yowei was not angry. He saw that Lu Feng was very dull. Emotionalism was a symbol of the weak, while the strong were often able to put aside their emotions and make the choices that were most beneficial to them. Lu Feng's half bottle of wine was just telling him that he was determined to do this, plus the phone call just now, and a threat. Huang Yowei stood up silently, waved at Secretary Kui, and walked towards the door. When he got to the door, he stopped and said, I'll give you an answer tomorrow morning. Lu Feng felt his stomach was burning, his legs went limp and he slumped to the ground, spitting out. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 209. Jin Ting Ting was startled and screamed. Su Yorong rushed over and dragged Lu Feng up. The scene became a mess. Kui Ning was the only man on Lu Feng's side. Everyone took him to the bathroom and vomited it clean. He was already drunk and unconscious. At this time, he had to go to the hospital. Su Yorong didn't mess up, she said a few polite words to Jin Ting Ting, sent her downstairs and found a car. Mr. Lu, it's okay, you go see him first, Jin Ting Ting worried. It's alright, it's just a matter of drinking too much. You go back to rest early. President Lu told me about you. He said that he treats you as a younger sister. If you want to live in that house, you can also sell or rent anything if you are nervous. Yes, the disposal is in your hands. Su Yorong closed the car door and said, goodbye. If you have any questions, you can come to us at any time, we are your family. Su Yorong's words were so heartwarming, Jin Ting Ting nodded. Although it was the first time she saw Su Yorong, She felt that she was very approachable and said, "You should rest early too, I'm leaving." The car slowly drove away, and Su Yorong saw a group of people carrying Lu Feng downstairs. She was speechless. Lu Feng didn't even have anyone around to support him, so she had to stand up and smooth the scene. When Zhang Fengxia saw Su Yorong going to see Jin Tingting, she thought she took the opportunity to try to curry favor with others, and her popularity exploded. "What? What are you yelling at me? He just drank too much, could he die?" Su Yorong scolded. "He's uncomfortable. He was sent to the hospital. He couldn't vomit up just now." "He vomited sour water," Zhang Fengxia cried anxiously. "I vomited half the bottle of liquor that I blew, not to mention sour water. I vomited blood back then and didn't die." Su Yorong stepped forward and asked, "Why shouldn't those guests be sent? Leave them there? Offend people? How to do? He's about to die, what do you still think about? He's living a good life, like money, relationships, it's all bullshit, you just want to curry favor with others." Kui Ning stood beside Lu Feng, watching two women who were not Lu Feng's wife arguing about this. He couldn't help but said, "Can we put him in the car first and go to the hospital?" Su Yorong didn't argue with her, she stepped onto the front rack and Lu Feng walked to the car. Zhang Fengxia hurriedly opened the car door and went to the hospital for an inspection. She didn't need gastric lavage, she took some antidote, and stayed for an hour. Feng became conscious and went back to the hotel. It was already 3 o'clock in the middle of the night, and Lu Feng was staggered back to his room, put on the bed, and the two of them went back to their rooms. After another hour, Su Yorong came out of the room, took out another room card and entered Lu Feng's room. For a whole night, Huang Yawei couldn't sleep, his mind was full of the phone call. It was 4 in the morning. He sat up abruptly and went to the study, picked up the phone and called Secretary Kui. "Notify those newspapers that the previously withdrawn propaganda will be launched today, and the acquisition of the Panda branch will continue." Huang Yawei waited for a long time, but still felt that it would be more beneficial for him to let Lu Feng toss around a bit. As long as there was no chaos, he would make a profit. Several major newspapers temporarily revised their manuscripts into a mess. Fortunately, there were prepared manuscripts before, and it was good to post them directly. Today's newspapers have been slow for more than half an hour. At the end of the press, the sky is bright, and it is 6:30. The title is, "Continue to promote the problem solving of the Panda TV factory, introduce GFN electronic technology, drive the enterprise to help, and make the silent workshop busy." Originally, some local companies took this as a joke, and even the surrounding cities took it as a joke, but they didn't expect a resurgence overnight. The first people who saw this newspaper were a little surprised, especially those who knew a little about the inside story. People are puzzled. What makes Huang Yawei, who is afraid of risks, do such a thing? It can be seen that this GFN electronic technology has some strength. At least for now, the background is not simple, but the Panda branch is not easy to deal with. It is a quagmire. Joke. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng dazedly stretched out his hand and hugged someone. His skin was soft and comfortable, he subconsciously hugged him tightly and continued to sleep. It didn't feel right to fall asleep, and the whole person was so frightened that he opened his eyes to see. "Are you awake?" Su Yorong leaned on the head of the bed and said, "Does it have a headache? What about you, is it stupid to drink? Are you hungry? You, why are you in my bed?" Seeing her shirtless, Lu Feng was dumbfounded on the spot. "I put you to sleep while you were drinking too much," Su Yorong said with a half smile. "Would you like to help you call the police and accuse me of rape?" Lu Feng lifted the quilt and glanced at it, hurriedly covered the quilt, looked around, and asked, "That? Looking for your panties? It's torn me up. It's on the lamp." Su Yorong glanced at the lamp on the table, picked up a lady's cigarette from the bedside table, lit a cigarette, turned it over and stuffed it into Lu Feng's mouth, lit another one for himself and said, "Lie down for a while and go eat." Lu Feng looked at the cloth strips hanging on the stage. He couldn't imagine what happened last night, so he took a puff of cigarette and started looking for his pants. "Aren't you happy? You've been drinking like that, what can I do to you?" Su Yorong threw the cigarette in the ashtray, stretched out his hand and pressed Lu Feng onto the bed, and said, "Come here. President Su, don't do this." Su Yorong picked up the cigarette and took another sip, and snorted disdainfully, "Your legs are all soft now, and in the future, if there is no one who is in charge of the overall situation, you will find a top drinker. You didn't see your secretary, ouch, he spit sour water, he's dying." Lu Feng found a suit of clothes from the suitcase to change. He only wanted one thing now, and that was whether he won the bet. Half an hour later, Su Yorong put on her clothes and started to wash. Zhang Fengxia knocked on the door and walked in with a stack of newspapers in her hand, a smile on her face. "Today's newspaper headlines are all about us, and it's done." Lu Feng laughed when he heard this, and reached out to take the newspaper and read it. Zhang Fengxia saw someone in the bathroom, glanced at it and asked, "Why are you here?" "I'm taking a shower here." She glanced suspiciously, and didn't ask any more questions. After 9 o'clock in the morning, Kui Ning received the news that Lu Feng would go to the meeting. For Kui Ning, the news was like good news. There were already many people in the conference room at the end of 10 o'clock. Huan Yowei walked in and took a look, his eyes were bloodshot, and he obviously hadn't slept all night. He said, "Sit down, let me introduce the situation of the Panda branch. First, this is the chairman of GFN Electronic Technology, Lu Feng. This is the village director of Xiaoli Village, Zhao Ergu." Lu Feng looked at him, his face was dark, there were several deep ravines, a soft blue hat was on his head, and the words Xiaoli Village Primary School were written on it. At first glance, he looked like a farmer. "Hello," Lu Feng stretched out his hand. "The representative of the panda manufacturer is not here, please take a seat." Huan Yowei sat down and waved his hand, indicating that the few people beside him could start talking. The panda branch, which was established in 1985 and established in 1987, covers an area of 1,927 mu and has a construction area of 1,265 mu. It was a key project of the city's top 10 super plans at that time. Participating subject, Panda Electronics Co., Limited, technology shareholding, including technology patent authorization, use, brand authorization, use, sales channel authorization, and use. Panda holds 45.5% of the shares, and the construction of the plant and the purchase of machinery will be jointly funded by the city's finance department and Xiaoli Village, with a total investment of 184.62 million, and the city's municipal government will hold % of the shares. 51. Xiaoli Village holds 3.5% of the shares. Stop, Zhao Ergu called to stop and said, "This is not the case." Back then, with the support of the township, our village borrowed 50 million yuan. At that time, we requested to use the land as a shareholding, 1900 mu of land. That's a lot, either 25% of the shares or 10%, and everyone in our village goes to work there. As for the 3.5 you mentioned, we don't recognize it. That's right, Huan Yowei rubbed his eyes and said, "The money you were given at that time was given by the local township enterprises. Why did those business people give you money? They just wanted to control some shares through you, and then colluded with some officials to use the shareholders' money. It has already been convicted of embezzling state-owned assets." Zhao Ergu waved his hands again and said, "I don't care if he embezzles, or if he is going to jail or shoot me, it doesn't matter to me. He will either give us money or give us the land back." The scene began to shout, and Lu Feng felt that the hole was not that big. He reached out and took a look at the information. This factory can not only produce TV tubes, motherboards, but also display screens. The annual output is 10 million units. The factory has been in operation for a few months, and it ended with the arrest of a large number of local township entrepreneurs. The shareholding was caught in a huge dispute. The villagers asked for land, money, and equity, but the money they invested before was all from those townships. Enterprises. Coupled with the sluggish market, it was impossible to digest such a huge production capacity back then, and such a large project was just so abandoned. Lu Feng made a simple calculation. If he wants to win this factory, it is just a dream without 200 or 300 million. The two sides quarreled for a long time, and Zhao Ergu did not speak. Go back and do a good job of the villagers. Those things are not yours in the first place. Justify with them. Let's go here today. Huan Yue yawned, looked at Lu Feng and said, Mr. Lu, take the information and read it yourself. Well, let me tell you one more thing, don't do anything to me, keep your hands and feet clean. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 210. Huan Yue yawned and walked away. As long as there were no major troubles, he didn't want to worry about it. As long as Lu Feng managed Xiaoli village and the panda manufacturer, the city was not afraid that Lu Feng would not give him money. Lu Feng put down the documents, looked at Zhao Ergu and asked, Kun Zhao, what is going on with our shares? The data here is very confusing, and it involves a case of embezzlement of state-owned assets. Stated that you only own 3.5% of the equity. The equity in the back was caused by bullshit. We invested 50 million, it was all wasted, and the land was taken up. Mr. Lu, I also held a meeting in the village yesterday, and we didn't want too much, just one bite. The price, 50 million, Zhao Ergu stretched out 5 fingers and said. Lu Feng took a look and found that Huan Yue now only accepts 3.5% of Xiaoli village's equity. If he gives 50 million, then the price of this factory will be raised to 1.5 billion. At this price, it is estimated that no domestic private enterprise can come up with it. Of course, if Mr. Lu thinks the price is a bit high, we can still accept the price of 20 million yuan, but there is one condition, that is, everyone in our village must go to the factory to work, and the salary cannot be less than 500 yuan. Lu Feng shook his head again and again, unable to agree to these two conditions, looked at Zhao Ergu and said, I still hope that the village chief Zhao can come up with a suitable solution. Now the conditions you put forward are too different, and I am also sincere. If you want to solve this matter, you drag it, and in the end you won't get anything. Mr. Lu, I'm from the village, I farm, I don't understand that, I'm just a communicator. These are what the villagers mean. The villagers said that we don't take advantage of others, we just get back the money we invested in. Zhao Ergu's dark face was full of embarrassment. He took out a welcome cigarette without a handle from his pocket and lit a puff. Lu Feng nodded slightly and said, let's do this for now. I hope village chief Zhao can go back and do more work. Let's settle this matter well. I'll go to the factory tomorrow to take a look and listen to the opinions of the villagers. Zhao Ergu nodded and left. Lu Feng sorted out the information and sat there thinking for a while. He didn't want to cause trouble to Huan Yue. If he could use the money to open the way, it would be better to use the money to open the way and spend a few million more for a small idea. Lu Feng looked at the judgment of that year, and several township enterprise bosses colluded with Xiaoli village to gain control of the Panda branch, and used their shareholder status to arrange 3 people including Zhao and Li to hold important positions for these township enterprises. The transfer benefit is as high as more than 84 million. This was a major case that shocked the whole province back then. The village head of Xiaoli village at that time had already sentenced the investment of 50 million yuan as invalid investment, which was directly given to the city treasury through deduction of illicit money. Xiaoli Village's share of the shares dropped from 25% to 3.5%, but the people of Xiaoli Village did not agree. The whole village caused a lot of trouble in the factory, coupled with lawsuits and market reasons, and the factory closed after a few months. In the following 2 years, companies continued to come to buy, even state-owned enterprises, but in the end they failed to negotiate with Xiaoli Village, and there was no following. Xiaoli Village has a registered population of 1,745 people. There are only more than 400 actual households. Half of them are middle-aged and elderly people over 40 years old. Because they are close to the urban area, basically all of them have entered the city. People number 450 million, Zhang Fengxia flipped through the documents and shouted, "If this is given, Huaxi Village will be a poor ghost in front of Xiaoli Village. The court has already sentenced them. Obviously, they want to repay their debts. The reason for the failure of the previous acquisition of the company is that they want 50 million. It can be seen that people in this village are very difficult to deal with," Su Yorong analyzed. "I think it's better to find a panda manufacturer first, sign the purchase contract with the city, and then go through legal procedures. Even if Xiaoli Village is calculated according to the previous calculation, it is only 25%, and it is a minority shareholder." Su Yorong directly interrupted Zhang Fengxia's words, "It's too idealistic. You know what it means to be a little devil. The factory occupies other people's land, and people are not happy. You still want to start work? I'm afraid you can't even get in the door." Lu Feng sorted out the information, put it in the folder and said, "Go to the village tomorrow to have a look. If you can have a good talk about it." Su Yorong shrugged her shoulders. She wasn't very optimistic about this matter, but she also knew that with Huang Youwei here, Lu Feng couldn't use his fists. The acquisition of GFN Electronic Technology has been overwhelming, especially the review of the Panda branch is everywhere. Compared with Lu Feng's lively in the Yangtze River Delta region, Jiao Unfan's Unfan Electronic Technology has a smooth flow in the Pearl River Delta region. Machines and propaganda are in place. Although the product has not yet come out, a product launch conference has been held. It is expected that the first color TV called Extraordinary Transistor will be launched by the end of the year. At the product launch conference, Jiao Unfan solemnly introduced the technical team behind him, the high-tech workshop, the high-end route, and various eloquent black technology names. He stepped on Lu Feng by the way. The two are basically on the same starting line, doing the same thing, but now the progress of the two sides can be said to be very different. Zhao Ergu returned to the village. There were 6 or 7 middle-aged men smoking cigarettes squatting at the entrance of the village. Standing at the entrance of the village, he could see the Panda branch factory like a hill in the distance. "How's the talk? Will you give me money? Everyone in the village is waiting for news. How much money can you give? I read the newspaper and said he was a big boss." A few people were talking at length. Zhao Ergu stopped the motorcycle and glanced at a few people and said, "Just wait to get rich. I tell you, whether you can get rich depends on this wave." "How much?" Zhao Ergu stretched out 5 fingers and said, 50 million. 50 million? This is too cruel, don't scare people away. That's right, let's sell it this time if we really can't do it. My family is short of money, so we can build several large tile-roofed houses in 10,000 or 20,000. Zhao Ergu was a little unhappy when he saw such short-sighted people. They still didn't understand the value of this factory. They didn't know how many companies had come here in the past 2 years. If it is signed and sold, it really has nothing to do with him. He can tell whether he is full or full. You go back and have a meeting with the villagers, and call Sun Er, Sibiao, and Liuzi to the village committee, and I will talk to them. Zhao Ergu turned the accelerator and left. Zhao Ergu thought very simply, Lu Feng, such a big boss, shouldn't pay a red envelope if he wants to succeed. Moreover, he saw that Lu Feng was very young, but he was just a hairy boy. It would be easy to shave hundreds of thousands of dollars from him. Then he would give a little bit to the village. If you want to be a good village chief, you have to learn how to do it. Bully the upper and lower, and scrape the oil and water hard. On the way back, Zhao Ergu was still scolding the previous village chief. The 1,900 acres of land was sold like that, and he had no land to sell. He parked his motorcycle and spat, and scolded him. Mom is black. After a while, 3 or 4 young men walked in. One was tall and thin, called Sun Er, with cross-eyed eyes, round legs, and tattoos on his body. The scars are called Sibiao. The only normal one is a man with long hair and bell-bottoms, with a cigarette in his mouth, a little trendy, called Lu Zi, walked in and said, "Uncle Zhao, how are you talking? 6 sons are here, sit down and tell you something. Tomorrow the big boss will come. It's up to you to squeeze out the oil and water. This time, it's a hairy boy, scare you. At that time, it will come in accordance with 100,000 yuan. Don't worry, I will definitely handle this matter properly." Lu Zi took a puff of cigarettes, sat on the table, and said, "If you want more points, it's not easy to come across, so if you want me to tell you, just do it. If the ticket is big, just drag the machines out of the factory and sell scrap iron. There's a big iron lump in it, at least it's sold to a scrap iron station, 500, Sibiao said excitedly. "Shut up, that factory is inspected almost every month, I tell you, don't move around, be careful to go to jail." Zhao Ergu ordered them a few more words and let them leave. In this village, the 6 sons are definitely the best, and the whole village is afraid of stomping one foot. With the help of 6 sons, Sun Ergu, the village chief, was stable. The next day, a welcome banner was pulled up in the village. At 9 o'clock in the morning, several commercial vehicles parked at the entrance of the factory. Lu Feng got out of the car and looked at the mottled wall washed away by the rain. The gatehouse reads Panda Electronics Manufacturing Factory, and even the red silk cloth is still on it. The large factory area, the high factory buildings and a lot of buildings in it are enough to show the ambition of the year. It can accommodate 19,000 employees, a dormitory area that can accommodate 3,000 people, and a canteen for 5,000 people. Lu Feng entered the factory area and looked at the area of Yumapingchuan. He seemed very small. The car was parked in the factory building, and the machines were neatly arranged inside, and many of the machines had not been unpacked. The electronic assembly line has been paved, and when you walk in here, it seems like a large factory that is about to start, but someone pressed the pause button at the moment when it was about to run. The table in the cafeteria was covered with dust. On a blackboard, it was written that the fish-flavored shredded pork was 5-pointed, and the potato and eggplant were 3-pointed. The signature below was May 19, 1988. Secretary Kui sighed aside, "It's a pity, it's really a pity here." Su Yorong nodded slightly, even she felt that as long as Lu Feng took control of Xiaoli village, this place was like a gift carefully prepared for him by God. Zhao Ergu checked that it was almost noon, and said, "Mr. Lu, it's almost noon, let's go to the village. The village has prepared meals. Although it is not as good as the banquet in the city, it is still a farmhouse style." High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list.